Safety first. Oh no! No! Oh no! Oh no! Oh Jesus! Hello and welcome back to the Novice Lumberjack, where I'm about to show you what I do for porting a chainsaw. First step, I shouldn't have to tell you this. You take it apart to the portion that you need to take it apart to get the readings and everything you need to read. This is the Wemars 6220. Supposed to be 62 cc's, but I think I measured it out when I first got it. I think it was 59 cc's. Anyways, whatever. The process is the same on pretty much everything. And this is the way I do it. First thing I do before I take the flywheel off is I check the squish. All right, now this one has such a bad squish that I should be able to crank it through without the, yeah, there we go. We measure it up and we are at, I can hardly even find the flat spot. There it is. 53 thousandths of an inch. So the squish is at 53 thousandths of an inch, which means we've got to drop it at least 30 thousandths of an inch off of the base. We might do some squish band work here. We may not. I don't know. These things have an easy start recoil starter, and they don't like really high compression. So we'll probably leave it as is, just cut the base. Next thing up, you check your actual timing numbers. I've already got my timing, my degree wheel set up. I use one of these digital ones. It is a Wixie. There's a model for it, but I can't remember. It says type 2. Ah, there it is. WR300 type 2. Wixie. Wixey. Don't ask me where you can find them. Do an internet search. All right, for the exhaust, I put my flashlight right there over the exhaust port, and I look down the spark plug until I get the first nice ray of light. This will be different for every person that does it. Some people do it the very first time they see light. Some people do it the very first time they see a solid ray of light. I do it right where it's at. And we're looking at about 98 degrees on the exhaust, which is too high. But that's good because we're going to drop this down. Probably going to put it right where we need it to be. On a saw like this, I would be happy enough with 102 on the exhaust roof. But 105 would probably be better. 104, something like that. I don't know. We'll see. But if I get 102, I'd probably be plenty happy with that. Intake. We turn it around until we see our first little spot opening where fuel could flow, about 50 thousandths of an inch-ish. All right, again, this is going to be subjective to how you read. Right, and I'm going to look, and yes, we got 77.4. And next up is the transfers. And the transfers can be really tricky. Sometimes you can't always see them, and then you'll have to figure out different methods. Like I have a bore scope that I might use. If you don't have a bore scope, you can buy one on Amazon. They're like 30 bucks. Or a lot of times you can look through the spark plug hole. This really works often on larger bore saws. On smaller ones, you often don't have enough room in there to see. There we go. I can see it that way. Going in through the exhaust. Shine my light through the exhaust. still, I can barely see it. Looks like about right there. Oh. No. I don't know. There we go. I can see real good now. There it is. As soon as they start to open up, we're looking at 126 degrees before the transfer opens. So what that gives us then, with a 98 degree exhaust, we've got 28 degrees of blowdown. All right, now we won't know exactly where we're going, where we want to be, okay, until we take it apart. But I've already checked all these numbers and I've written them down. Always be prepared and ready with a pencil or a pen and a little notebook. Write down your stuff. I got the stock numbers. My stock squish is 0.053. Intake opens at 77.4. Exhaust opens at 98.4. And the transfers open at 126. Which this is a clear indication of why this thing runs as good as it does, is the numbers really aren't that bad at all. It really ain't. The squish is pretty bad, but the 98 degrees on the exhaust is a little bit too high. We lose torque whenever we do this. This is a pretty short stroke engine, but it does have 34 millimeter stroke. I do believe that was what this thing has. And so that 98 on this is not nearly as bad as 98 on a 32 millimeter stroke saw. Anyways, transfers, that's 28 degrees is a lot of blowdown. And so we'll see. We're going to open it up and look in there and see what it looks like. See if those transfer ports are cavernous. Whatever. Here we go. All right, now that we know for a fact that we are not going to be using the, good news. Good news, brothers and sisters. This is a quad port cylinder. I mean, it's still open port, but it is quad. But since we know that we are not going to be utilizing that base gasket, we need to immediately go right back on. Put the cylinder right back down, bolt it up. With this kind of stuff, I only use 2 bolts, one on either side of the cylinder in opposing corners. We don't have to bear down on this very much. We just go ahead and get it nice and snug so that we can get an accurate reading. There we go. Now we measure the squish again. A lot of people check it in multiple places. I don't. Haven't had an issue yet. Let's recheck this. Now without a gasket, we are at 41 thousandths of an inch. So that tells me that I need to take 20 thousandths of an inch off of this. Now I'm probably going to back off a little bit from that, take off about 18 thousandths or 17 thousandths, because I probably want this saw, because of that easy start mechanism, to be around 25 thousandths of an inch on the squish. Right. So yeah, both the exhaust and the intake are probably, like the intake I probably won't touch at all. Because once I drop that down, the intake's probably going to be a little bit too much. Intake's probably going to be at 81, 82. Which we can get away with that because of the open port setup. Closed port setups, I mean, there's a lot of different things going on. But I'm saying the open port setups, there's more room inside the crankcase. And so therefore, you have more of a cushion that will allow you to run a higher intake duration without the saw spitting back. We don't need to measure the transfers again because the transfers are completely relevant to the exhaust opening. So if we had 28 degrees of blowdown before, right now we've still got 28 degrees of blowdown. The only time that they change is whenever you change the exhaust roof. Doesn't matter what you do to the cylinder as far as raising and lowering it by removing material off of either the squish band and or the base plate. You can remove as much as you want. Your transfer numbers don't change due to lowering the cylinder. The only thing that changes your transfer numbers is whenever you change the exhaust height. Okay, so now what we do is we study. We study our numbers and we study the cylinder. Now this cylinder, let me give you a close-up. That's your quad port setup. Now it is open port, but there are 4 of them, which means we can direct them better and have a higher velocity, and we can aim them where we want them to go a lot better than we can if it is a dual open port with one on each side. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to cut the base to get my squish where I want it to be. Then I'll check my numbers again and make sure that the intake and the exhaust is where I want them to be. If they're not, then I do a little bit of cutting and or I put JB weld in order to get the numbers where I want them to be. The only thing that's bad about this is you can't use JB weld on the exhaust. The exhaust gets too hot, it'll burn out that JB weld and it'll either just fly out the muffler or possibly get sucked back into your engine and cause a little bit of damage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the lathe. I'm going to chuck this up or whatever you call it, and I'm going to cut about 17 thousandths off of it. And then we'll be back and make decisions. Okay, so we cut the base. I did neglect to tell you a very important part of this process, and that is check your piston on the exhaust side. You want to see and make sure how much room you have on the piston skirt. So I didn't do that. It is possible that we didn't have enough room. Come on. I can't turn that. So I'm having a hard time rotating the engine over due to the squish band is now much tighter. So what we do is we grab hold of the clutch any way we can. There we go. All right, that's nice. Heh. 25 thousandths. I'm getting pretty good at this. 25 thousandths of an inch on the squish. So we are golden there. We don't need to do anything else with that. Let's go ahead before we move this chainsaw, because with this digital gauge setup, if I move this thing back and forth, it does mess up my readings. I mean, I do know that my desk is pretty darn level, and I do it right here all the time, and it works out well for me. But sometimes I will lock these in a vise. These chainsaws is what I mean. So the exhaust now. Didn't move it much at all now, did it? $99. That sucks. I was hoping I'd get to 102. If you're unfamiliar of how it didn't change much, it's because where the crank is, all right, your piston and your rod hooks onto the crank. Well, depending on where the crank is, the piston moves up and down more. Clearly where it's falling at right here, even though we moved the cylinder pretty considerably, it's not making that much of a difference. Well, a lot of it depends on how you read it. Like that right there, I'm looking at it. Well, no, I wouldn't have read it like that. I would not have. Yeah, we're at 99. Intake. $81.4. So I do not want to go further because that'll just make my intake open even more. But of course I could put JB Weld on the intake. Can't do that with the exhaust. Man, I really wanted it to be 102. Let's see what we're working with on this side with the piston skirt. I'm sure we've got plenty of room. No, we don't. We are free porting. Holy crap. Free porting. Totally free porting. Substantially free porting as well. Fudge. This is why you should always check that piston skirt. Let me show you what free porting is. I should do that. You can see it right there. See, whenever you can see light coming underneath the piston right there, should block out all light, but it's going up so far and the piston skirt is not long enough, and so therefore we see it free porting. That's considerable. So what are we going to do? That sucks. Well, I've come to a decision, and that is we're fucked. I'm just going to go ahead and proceed as planned with the transfers. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to raise the initial transfer up to about a 15-degree blowdown. And I probably am going to increase the secondary transfer as well. And then we're going to send it. And maybe the free porting probably isn't going to hurt it that bad, but it is a lot of free porting. My Wild Thing free ports a little bit, not as much as this. This is a lot of free porting. But we're going to go for it and put it back together and see how she does. Okay, so here we are. You can see there that I widened up the exhaust a good bit. The transfers, I raised both of them on each side. Those smaller ones right there, those are your initial transfers. They're a little bit higher. And I also gutted the muffler completely. So we're gonna put it back together, and I'll get the transfer numbers whenever I have it together, and I'll let you know what they are, and we'll see how it runs. Also cut the key just a little bit. Going to advance the timing just a little bit. Not much, but just a little bit. All right, let's see what we got. Definitely has a lot more compression, and it definitely feels like it has more power. Whenever I was messing around with it, you know, doing the port job and all that stuff, I noticed that I've got an 8-pin sprocket on here. And that is due to, I think whenever I first got it, I threw a 3/8 chain on there, and then whenever I went back to the 325, I was wanting to see which one was faster, but I wanted to keep it blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw a 7-pin sprocket on here. I'm going to throw the bar and chain off of the Thunder Kitten and see how close it compares to that. But I got to say right off the bat, I mean, it runs great. I don't think that Freeport affected anything. It's got a lot more compression. Okay, so here we are. We got the exact same setup that the Thunder Kitten had on it the other day. This is a 22-inch bar steel RS chain. The chain's not perfect, but it's not bad either. I got my screwdriver. I guess we're ready to go. Tightening up the clutch. I can do it. Had to tighten up that clutch. I can hear it keep backing off and hitting the cover. I mean, it pulls. Mark, I know that you said you got one of these and you're having a bad time with it, and I'm sorry. I hate that for you, buddy. But like the things that you mentioned that were wrong with yours, you said that, and I'm not knocking you, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, all right? It's a $145 chainsaw. You know that. Yeah, so, but the things that you had talked about that I'm going to address right now was the ignition was toy-like, right? Okay, does it work or does it not work? That's the only thing that's important to me with the ignition. Yeah, the Kuchir that I messed with the other day, I broke the flywheel easily. They are pathetically weak in certain areas, and that's one of them. You're not wrong. But is it getting spark? Yes. Then who cares? You said the oiler wasn't working very well. Well, you may not know, these things actually have an adjustable oiler. And the oiler is also a known issue with all of the Chinese clones. So maybe you have a real issue there. Send it back, you know. The other thing that you mentioned was the adjustment screw is laughable. And you're completely right on that, brother. The adjustment screw is absolutely laughable. Yeah, see, this thing's oiling a 22-inch bar fine. That's cool as a cucumber, you know. Anyways, the adjustment screw is a joke. They've got like a Phillips setup on there that you couldn't possibly use a Phillips with. But you can replace it. That's just a bolt. It's just a bolt. My only real complaint with these saws is the air filter. The air filter on them is really trash. It lets fines through like crazy. And the other thing that I don't like these easy pull spring assist starters. It's especially weird now that it's got compression. But as far as everything else, I mean, you got to realize most people, like I got a buddy who got him a Kuchir, and he's happy as can be with it. And I'm like, ugh, right? And he's like, why would I spend $600 for a steel or a Husqvarna or whatever when I know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a chainsaw. I'm going to use it for what I need. Then I'm going to just let it sit on the floor. Then a year later, maybe it'll start up. And if it does, I'll keep using it, you know. But every 2 or 3 years, he's perfectly fine with dropping $150 on a junky chainsaw. And that's the way many, many, many people operate, you know. He's not heating by wood. He's only cutting up stuff as he needs to, you know. But these things run so good, I mean, I say get one. She's screaming demon, you know. I don't know if it'll beat the Thunder Kitten or not, but it feels like it will. But, you know, I've been proven wrong on that before. I mean, I ran the Thunder Kitten like a week ago. What do I know right now, right off the bat? But, and let's say that it does. This has 10 more cc's, you know, but still, Thunder Kitten was $400. Then, I mean, me and Charlie worked out a deal. I traded him a chainsaw and things, you know, and a pork job's $300. So the Thunder Kitten, for comparison purposes, that's a $700 chainsaw. $700 chainsaw compared to a $145 chainsaw. And they weigh about the same. This is probably a tad bit heavier, but just a touch. This is a 50cc frame all day long. This is a 50cc frame. It's tiny. It looks and feels just like a Rancher 55, a 55 Rancher, whatever you want to say. But now the port job, you got to be able to port it. But I mean, it had good power before, but now, I mean, I want to do it again. I mean, really. I'm going to give it a little more fuel. You can feel that thing digging. It's torquey. Good little saw. Yeah, completely cool. So yeah, Mark, I mean, it's probably not too late. Send that one you got back. Send it back. Probably bought it on Amazon. They got great return policies. Anyways, free porting and all, and it's still running like that. Great little saw. Okay, so I guess the port job worked. The Thunder Kitten, that was its best time whenever I tuned it in the wood. And this, what I just showed, was the Wemars' best time. They were back and forth. The fastest there, I think it's like 15.16 seconds. And the Thunder Kitten did it in like, I don't know, 15.6 or something like that, or point 0.60, I don't know, whatever. Clearly the Wemars did it faster. There were, with both saws, they had times that were slower than that as well. The Thunder Kitten, its slowest time was in the 19-second range, and the Wemars, its slowest time, once ported anyways, was also in the 19-second range. Maybe, actually, I think the slowest time was whenever I fattened it back up there at the very end, and it was like maybe 20 seconds or 21 seconds. But anyways, fastest time for fastest time, the Wemars beat it, which is just downright shocking because the Thunder Kitten runs fantastic. It's a great running little saw. But it goes to show you, if you do your research and pick the higher quality clone saw, and if you're lucky and you get one, because really that's probably about all it is, luck of the draw. If you get one that's at least close to the CCs that they claim that it is, which this Wemars, I think, I tested it. It was like 59 cc's. And I get a lot of comments on the cc range. What it seems to be is a lot of people, they read somewhere on the internet the specs of these saws and say, like the big one is that the cylinder is 47.5 millimeters. No, it ain't. So you can read it all you want. And if you choose to believe it, you know. But this is like the 5th or 6th one of these Chinese clone saws, little Zenoa clones that I have come across, and none of them have spec'd out to what they're supposed to be. And I think that it's across the board, just completely at random. I really do, because I know that like Toyota and Honda, back in the day, back in the 80s, or I've been told, I don't know this for sure, what they would do is they would have the cylinders, and they would, like if it was a 4-cylinder car, all 4 cylinders would likely be different bores. And they would find a piston to match that bore. And I think that's probably along the lines of what's going on with these cheap Chinese clones, is they're not necessarily manufacturing anything to spec. What they're doing is they're getting it and they're going, okay, this will work. And they just make something, they just put it together. But I think, I mean, to me, I think that's very impressive. That's very impressive that $145 saw can be competitive with a $400 Echo saw. Now, is it going to last as long? Of course not. Of course not. Is it as good? No way it's not as good. But is it fun to play with? And should you get something like this if you want to try your hand at porting? Yes. Because like that cylinder, if the free porting had messed it up, I think I can buy another one of those piston and cylinder combos for like 15 or 20 bucks. So they're a great thing to learn on. They're easy to work with, and good results. I will say that whenever I was really dogging it in hard, after that was done, I could smell the clutch was burning. So don't want to do that. With this amount of power now, Eric Salyer, Ease Hack Job Saws, he has had issues with these things burning out clutches. And so just be aware of that whenever you add the extra power. And even when you don't add the extra power, if you're hard on it, these clutches are going to be the first things to tell you, hey, I'm soft. So anyways, cool results. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and check you later.